Welcome to Landscape Photo Editing Sessions. I'm Raita Arkiri. In this episode I'm going to show you my workflow for one of my latest images, and I'm also going to show you a cool technique to extract more detail from certain areas of a photo. So I have a bracketed exposure here. This is from the Waikoloa Hilton, a seascape photo. This is my favorite location for seascapes, so the Hilton Waikoloa. So I have my 3 exposures, and I'm only going to use these 2 exposures and blend them with Luminosity Mask. So I'm going to start by adjusting the color. So I'm going to increase the saturation and vibrance all the way so that I can accurately change the color. And the color looks good to me. I'm happy with that white balance. I'm going to reduce the highlights a little bit, increase the shadows, increase the contrast, I'm going to increase the clarity just a little bit, and increase the saturation and vibrance. So I want to bring out some more color in the water and the sky. Alright, I'm going to use a adjustment brush, and I'm going to bring out more detail in the water by increasing the contrast and clarity. So I'm just going to start painting the brush in. Let's increase the contrast more. So paint that brush in. I also want to bring out more blue in the water, so I'm going to increase the saturation. I really like that blue color in the water. Alright, once I have that, make sure it's evenly painted on. I'm going to increase the clarity a little bit more, and also the contrast, and decrease the temperature just a little bit to bring out more blue. Also, I just want to make the tint a little bit more green. Okay. Next, I'm going to copy the settings for that photo and then paste it onto the underexposed photo. And this photo, I want more color in the sky, so I'm going to increase the vibrance and saturation for this photo. And then I want to bring out more of a red hues, because it's a little bit too yellow. So I'm going to go to the hue and use the yellow, select the yellow, make it more orange, and then the orange and make it more red. Alright. And I said I was going to use this photo for a Luminosity Mask template. So what I mean is everything that's in here, the tonal ranges, those are going to be selected. So I want to separate the sky and the shadows. So to do that, I'm going to increase the highlights all the way and decrease the shadows all the way. So this will make it easier to select just the sky part and also the shadows part. I'm also going to decrease the exposure just a little bit to balance it out with the other images. Okay, once I'm done with that, I'm going to edit them, open as layers in Photoshop. I'm going to bring the Luminosity Mask template to the top to make it visible, and then I'm going to go ahead and generate the luminance mask. I can go ahead and delete that, don't need that anymore, and then bring the sky layer to the top and make a black mask or a blank mask. Make sure that's black and then select. I'm gonna use the brightest luminosity mask. Select it with Control, click on the thumbnail. I'm gonna hide the selection with Control H, and then I'm gonna select the layer mask and start using a white brush and painting the sky in. So I'm gonna make sure it's evenly painted on the sky, and then I'm gonna do a second round just to paint in any more that might have been missed. So I'm gonna check the luminosity mask or the layer mask and make sure the sky is all white, and then I'm gonna use a black brush. I'm gonna deselect the selection first, and then you need to use a black brush to remove some of the parts I don't want. Okay. Next thing, I want to get rid of the nasty glow just around the edges of the rocks over here. You can see that kind of a glow. I think my lens got some splashes onto the filter, and then I wiped it with my shirt, and that didn't really, that more just spread around the water, and now the light was reflecting off the lens and made that weird glow. So I'm gonna fix that with a curves adjustment, and I'm just gonna reduce that curve until that part of the image is the same brightness as the other part, the lower part, the part that wasn't affected by the glow. I'm gonna invert that mask and then use a white brush to reveal that the parts that were affected by the glow. Okay, that's a little bit too dark, so I can just use the opacity and maybe around 80%, and use a black brush. I'm just gonna do some fine adjustments. And I'm gonna use another curves layer to fix that part. So that was the worst part, so I'm gonna bring that down until it looks good. Invert the mask and then paint on the glow right there with a white brush. Okay, that looks good now. The next thing I'm going to do is increase the contrast of the flowing water. So I'm going to create a curves adjustment above everything and use the picker tool to find a kind of a dark part and then find a light part. And then I'm going to create an S curve. And also I'm going to increase the highlights just a little bit. You can see how it's affecting it right there. And I'm going to move this a little bit more to the midtones and keep adjusting it until it looks good. Okay, I'm going to change the blending mode to luminosity. Luminosity, if I can find it. Right there, luminosity. So that just fix the color so that the contrast or curves adjustment didn't affect the color by changing the blending mode to luminosity. Alright, now I'm going to show you that cool trick that I learned. So basically this trick will extract more detail from the waterfall. So this is a good technique for water or clouds. It'll really make the clouds look good if I had some, and also the water. So I'm gonna press Control Shift Alt E and make a copy of everything that's visible. I'm gonna duplicate. Actually, I don't need to duplicate that layer, but so this technique, I just use the unsharpen mask. So with the unsharpened mask, instead of doing like a regular sharpening, what I usually do, that's my usual settings, 200% with a radius of 1. This time I'm gonna go down to a radius of around 70 and increase the radius. So increasing the radius sharpens or extracts more detail from those fine parts of the waterfall. And this will do the same thing with clouds, so give that a try with clouds and it'll make it much more sharper. I was surprised at how much better my clouds looked when I tried this. But I'm just gonna keep adjusting it until I find a good balance. This is gonna increase the noise, but you can just do a noise reduction after. So let's see, this looks pretty good. A radius around 10 and a amount of around 60%. I'm gonna do noise reduction by a plugin called Noise Aware. Trying to adjust the window right here. Okay, so with Noise Aware, I'm just gonna use one of the presets called Night Scene and go to the frequency and lower the low frequency and also increase the color noise reduction and maybe a little bit more high frequencies. Alright, that's looking good. And now when I hide this layer, you can see the big difference it made to the waterfall. So it really brings out more details in the waterfall. Alright, I'm gonna use a black mask and only paint on the parts that I want. So this will be everything in the waterfall. So I'm just gonna create an outline on the parts that I want. I'm gonna avoid that part because I don't want more detail right there, because that's going far to the edge. So I'm just creating a basic outline. Then I'm gonna press Alt and then I'm just gonna fill in the blank part with white. Okay, well, once that I have got that down, I'm gonna start. I'm noticing that this is kind of a distraction right here, and also there's a weird little thing right there. I'm gonna clone stamp it, but before that I'm gonna use a curves adjustment and increase the exposure a lot. So this is a good technique when you're doing clone stamping, so that you make sure you do the clone stamp good. So I'm gonna find some parts that I want to clone stamp. Alright, that looks pretty good. And then I'm gonna go to this one and clone stamp that part. Okay, I can delete that curves adjustment, and that did a pretty good job. Okay. And then the next thing I'm gonna do is start doing sharpening. So notice how some of the edges over here, I don't know if you can see that, but it's kind of soft. I guess the lens. I forgot what aperture this was at. I used the manual lens for this, but what I do to fix that, I use a radial sharpening. And to do that, I'm gonna create a copy of everything visible and create a new layer and use the select, the oval select or whatever, and select just the go up to the edges on each side of the oval. I'm going to press Ctrl Shift I to invert the selection, and then press Alt Delete to fill that with the foreground color, which is black. I'm going to go to Filter, Blur, Gaussian Blur, and then the radius is going to be a large amount, and then so I'm basically using this for a selection for a layer mask. So to fix that blurry part, I'm gonna use an unsharpen with a radius of 200 and a amount of 200 and a radius of 2. So that does a good job of sharpening the rocks. That sky is kind of noisy. Should have done that beforehand on the sky layer. But anyway, I'm gonna apply that, select that layer that was hidden that I just made and layer mask that. And then with a brush, I'm gonna use a black brush so that the sky doesn't get sharpened. So I'm just gonna paint an outline around the sky. And then check the layer mask and start painting in the rest. Okay, I'm still noticing I want to sharpen some more of the rocks a little bit right here. So I'm going to use a white brush and just start painting on some of the parts I want sharpened. I also don't want to sharpen the waterfall, so I'm going to make sure that's not going to be sharpened, because sharpening the waterfall will add more noise to it. Okay, the next thing I'm going to do is create another copy of everything visible. And now this is my global sharpening layer, and this time I'm just gonna do the amount of 200 and the radius of 1. And I'm also gonna do some noise reduction with noise aware, and I'm just gonna use the landscape preset. To reduce the noise on that. Okay, and then that's it for the editing. And to reduce the size for saving it for web, I'm just gonna do 1280. Use a smart sharpen of a amount 150, 0.2 radius, and then that'll really sharpen up more of the details. Alright, so you can use this technique for the extracting more detail, just a regular unsharpened mask, but the amount will be low and the radius will be high. So use this technique for moving water, or to extract more detail from water or clouds. So So it's a really cool technique. I really love that one. So thanks for watching this video. Subscribe and like for more.